Fossils.
Fossils.
Fossils and
Fossils and
fiction.
fiction. Hey there, I'm Travis Holland, and I'm with my co-host Alyssa Field. We are together, Fossils and Fiction, and it's been a little while. Hi, Alyssa.
It has been a while. How are you enjoying your early winter here in Australia?
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, it's, nowhere near the European winter that I experienced, which we talked about in our last episodes. We're turning into a tourism, a tourism and travel podcast, I think, because this week I'm going to take you on a road trip all around Queensland. Are you ready?
I'm ready. It's going to be like This American Life, but it's This Fossil Life.
We're going to hit the road for about a 2,000-kilometre road trip, and this is in aid of Queensland Dino Week, which is May 4 to 10, 2026. It's the first Queensland Dino Week, and just to give you an overview of what that is basically everything paleo in the state of Queensland, which is one of Australia's biggest states, I think the second biggest state, is open for Queensland Dino Week. They're all running special experiences, and it's going to be huge. But yeah, you've got to get on the road to see it all. Or more importantly, wherever you are in Queensland, there's something for you. So it's pretty exciting.
Queensland, famously here in Australia, is where a lot of our more famous dinosaurs come from. If you've been following the news, you might have seen the recent Muttaburrasaurus reconstruction. Muttaburrasaurus is a stop on the Queensland Dino Week tour. They've also got a lot of great speakers, some of whom Travis had a chance to interview exclusively.
I did. So we will start our road trip with Jo Wilkinson at the Queensland Museum. This is located in Brisbane. But in addition to Jo's work at Brisbane as a fossil preparator, she's going to tell us all about what happens at Chinchilla, the southwestern town in Queensland, chinchilla fossil finders and various other activities. So that is the first stop on the road trip, going from Brisbane to Chinchilla with Jo Wilkinson from Queensland Museum.
That's so exciting. We always hear about Queensland Museum, but I've never heard of chinchilla.
My name is Joanne Wilkinson. I work as a fossil preparator and conservator at the Queensland Museum. And I've been here for about 35 years this year. I've had experience working on all sorts of material from around Queensland, lots of different sediments and lots of different modes of preservation. I love working at the museum. It's an honour and a pleasure. Every day I come to work, I'm amazed. I started going up to Chinchilla regularly every year to do the World Science Festival. And then that led on to us making a connection with the local Chinchilla Historical Museum. And they were very keen to partner and be the host of a special activity that we started 4 years ago. And we wanted to invite the local community to an event where they could be citizen scientists for the day and help us sieve material and sort material from the very significant beds of sediment that are in the area. And they came, and every year it's grown bigger and bigger. And what we get out of it is an amazing amount of these tiny microfossils. So for 150 years, material that they can see with the naked eye. So you walk around the eroded gullies, and after rain, these pieces, often pieces, broken up pieces of larger animals you can find on the floor of the gullies or coming out of the sides of the gullies. But it's very hard to find anything tiny because when you're walking around, it's too hard to see. You need to sieve this material and then look at it under either a magnifying lamp or a microscope to actually see the tiny weeny animals. So we have a pretty good idea of the megafauna that lived in the Pliocene at Chinchilla because they're slightly older than the Pleistocene beds of the Eastern Darling Downs. These are Pliocene, and they're aged around about 3.5 million years old. So we have a pretty good idea because lots and lots of fossils have come in, and there's been many, many papers, scientific papers written over the years on these animals. But very little sieving and sorting of the tiny material has been done. There has been some done, but we just thought that's where the gap is. So 4 years ago, we decided to systematically start collecting material from the site, and we've been sieving and sorting. And it's great fun for the general public to come in. They get a bit muddy, and it's very easy to do, washing material through a sieve, and then we allow it to dry. And then we usually bring dried material from the year before because it takes a little while to dry, and we never know whether it's going to be a sunny day or a cloudy day. Material that we've dried from the year before, we ask the community if they'd like to sit down and sort through that. And the gems that we find are the tiny teeth belonging to rodents, belonging to little mammals. So lizards, we find lizard teeth. We've just found a little snake vertebra, which is tiny. And these things are usually, between 0.5 mil and probably 3 mils or 2 mils in size. So they are the tiny little creatures that lived in the same time and the same environment, but we've hardly seen before.
So you're handing a sieve to someone who has maybe never looked for fossils in their life. What are you telling them to look for?
Yes.
And then what's their reaction when they find something?
Yeah, it's really lovely. They're usually a family, some children and mum and dad sitting there. We give them a sieve. We put some sediment in the sieve, and then they dunk it in some water. So they're sort of jiggling it around in the water. And the silt washes away, and what's left is a lot of sand, because the formation that this material is in is quite a silica-rich, sandy material formation. And they get to see on the top of the sieve, in the sunshine normally, these shiny little things that are mostly bones. So they will see, usually anything that's tooth will still have some enamel on it. And if it's wet, it will really shine up very clearly that it's a tooth. So they can usually see teeth very well. There's some Queensland Museum staff with them, so we always help them look in the sieve and we can find whatever. And they get a chance to talk to a true expert on what they've just found in the sieve. So it's a fabulous chance to get a one-on-one with a real live paleontologist who is the active researcher in the site. So it's a pretty good experience, I think. And I think it's one of the few experiences where you are literally finding these things the same in real time. You are handing them to the expert who's going to tell you whether it's significant or not. And it's magic. It's magic.
So a Chinchilla Fossil Finders is coming up, but what
Yes.
else is happening out at Chinchilla? Anything else that the museum is involved in or you're involved in for Queensland Dino Week?
Chinchilla Historical Museum has taken this project on with amazing gusto. So they host the event and they put on a fabulous meal at lunchtime for people to buy. They also open the doors of the museum's actually not open on the day, but they open the area. There's a little train ride. We have a person who comes in with animals, live animals. So there's a live animal show, which kind of relates to the animals they're finding in the fossil. The fossil animals can, that's a snake. We've got a snake here. It's all kind of joined in. But the other thing that happens throughout the year, the museum has said, if anybody in the community wants to come and sort this material, even when the Queensland Museum aren't here, they're very welcome to do so. So I do a workshop whenever we go up for the event for Fossil Finders. 2 days before the event, I usually do a workshop at the museum. And that's this year, we've invited a group of people who, from last year's event, said that they were interested in learning. So we will have 7 or 8 people who've signed up for that workshop, and they are able to come into the museum anytime they want. Well, as long as Kath, the director, is there and lets them in. But they'll be given all the equipment they need, and they can just stay there and sieve and sort for sort of 2 or 3 hours, anytime they want, really, that fits into their schedule and Kath's schedule. So it's a fabulous kind of way of the local community taking ownership of the project and working with the Queensland Museum. The other thing they've done is purchase little digital microscopes. So if they find something that they're not sure of, they can take an image and send it to Jonathan, who works in the Museum Discovery Centre. And Jonathan is right there to answer any queries or to identify any specimens that they can send. So without really doing anything out of our business as usual, we're able to build this amazing connection with this community out in Chinchilla and enable them with their local museum to kind of participate in the work in their own environment. So they're really not relying on us too much to initiate the work, but we're all working together. And I just think that's a fabulous outcome for the community. On the night of the 9th of May, in the area just to the adjacent to the Chinchilla Historical Museum is the Chinchilla Botanical Gardens. And in the Botanical Gardens at 5 p.m., we're showing the ABC Catalyst documentary Megafauna, What Killed Australian Giants, narrated by Hugh Jackman. And then after that, at 6 p.m., we're showing Ben Stiller comedy Night at the Museum. So that's a new addition this year, and we'd love everybody to come down and enjoy us down there. Dinosaurs are around that 100 million years and a bit older, but our fossils are only 3.5 million. But they form a very interesting group called the megafauna, and we're looking at the tiny ones that lived alongside the megafauna. And they're a fascinating group of animals. There are many extinct, all extinct, but they were the forebears of lots of the lovely animals we have today.
You indicated that you're also bringing some live creatures into the show on the day, so people get to make those links between those creatures that were here, only a few million years ago to what we have around today.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's all about just understanding that it was a great, diverse environment. And as time changed, those environments changed as well. Different animals at different times. And these fossils give us a glimpse into what was there. And the more that we can find, the more that we can understand those links between the animals.
Well, that was a fabulous first stop on our trip, Travis. I can't imagine what you have for us after that.
Yeah, back on the road in my EV, and hopefully there's some charging spots out here in Western Queensland. We are on our way even further west to the Eromanga Natural History Museum, and Robin McKenzie is the director out there. Robin is one of the founders of the museum, and Eromanga is a small town, but they have done an amazing job. They have some of the biggest dinosaurs in the country out there in southwest Queensland in this beautiful little town called Eromanga. So that's our next stop.
That's exciting. I've never been to Eromanga, but I've seen lots and lots of images of the creatures that they dig up out there.
The Eromanga Natural History Museum is just outside of Eromanga. It's 3 kilometres outside of Eromanga. Eromanga region sits in an area where it's very central to the Eromanga Basin, and it overlies the Cooper Basin, which are very strategic structural basins in the history of the geology of Australia and have a huge influence in the Eromanga Sea actually formed. And, it was actually the last chapter in the Eromanga Sea, so it's effectively the remaining puddle would have been in this area of the Eromanga Sea back in, 100 million years ago or 90 million years ago when it was retreating. Eromanga has its own story, its own chapter in the whole evolution of the Eromanga Sea and its geological history as well. And hence, the Eromanga Natural History Museum has a role to play in that, to interpret and to preserve this uniqueness of this area. The beginning came just about 22 years ago when a piece of fossilised dinosaur bone the size of my fist, was found by my son, and quite an accidental find, and just an inquisitive 14-year-old boy doing his job mustering and looking around, and also looking at rocks. That started it all, and what came from that has been quite extraordinary, and that's led to discoveries of more dinosaur sites, but not only more dinosaur sites, like incredibly important dinosaurs which have led to new species, and numerous of them. Like I think we've got 11 in the lab at the moment that we're actually working on for research. So, and it's incredibly slow, because a lot of them are very, very big dinosaurs. Dinosaurs will always lead. They're always the most coolest things that you can discover, really. I think you'll agree with that.
Yeah, look, everybody loves a good dinosaur.
Yeah. So they led the story. And then from there we went I guess being landholders as we are, I'm off a property west of Eromanga again. So we were landholders. I've been here for 40 years and my husband's family's been on the property for 80 or over 80 years. So we're sort of very much part of the area, I guess, and know, that what happens in terms of rainfall and, everything that goes on in this country, we've got a pretty good grip on, in relatively short time, geologically speaking, but from a European settlement point of view, it's quite a long time. So we understand what's important. We understand that it's really important to keep your heritage, your cultural heritage, your natural heritage within the region of discovery. And I guess we weren't really setting out to do what we ended up doing. Like when we first found that, what we did, and our son found that piece of dinosaur bone, that that just sort of triggered something in the back of our mind, our conscience, I guess, that led us to where we are today with establishing a natural history museum. I guess we knew that this sort of material just normally always went to a state museum without any question, and sometimes overseas. And I guess we were in a generation where we were starting to question things, and things just, some things you felt needed to change. And we knew that wouldn't be easy because there's always that status quo that, like, you do what everyone else has done and just, behave sort of things. So we perhaps weren't of that thinking, and both of us, both Stuart and I, were both quite determined to keep all this within our region. And then, of course, we had the backing of the resources companies, we had the backing of the community, we also had backing of the Geosciences Australia team at the Queensland Museum as well, and in particular, I have to say Scott Hucknall, who you probably met, and also Joe Wilkinson and Mel Wilkinson, other members of the team as well. So without that support, I guess we would have struggled to learn what we needed to know to establish and maintain and preserve and do everything we needed to do to get to where we are today with these collections.
You've mentioned Cooper, and for now, Cooper, I guess, is known as Australia's largest dinosaur. Tell us about that discovery.
So that discovery was back in 2006, and Stuart and I were mustering, as we did a lot of. Well, he still does. I don't do much of now.
You're running a museum. You don't have time for mustering
Yeah, no,
anymore.
they kind of realised that. And I was wasting my time when I went mustering. I was looking for other things. So, and look, back then we were mustering, and I'd actually, interestingly enough, found another dinosaur site, not Cooper's site, which is nicknamed George, and George is probably going to be bigger than Cooper, as it turns out. But what George actually is, we know that now. But he's part of Australotitan cooperensis. He's a referred to specimen. So I'd found a piece of bone, which at the time I was a bit new to the game, so I just needed to check with others to make sure that it was bone. And there was a lot of this bone on the surface, so I was sort of thinking, wow, that's quite incredible. Anyway, so I put it down the front of my shirt because I was riding a motorbike and I needed to hang on. So met up with Stuart. We pulled up. Both bikes pulled up beside each other, and I just pulled this out of the front of my shirt and showed it to him, and we both discussed it and said, yeah, no, that looks like dinosaur bone, authorities as we were at the time. Anyway, so then we both just looked up in front of us, and probably about, 5 to 10 metres in front of us, not even that, we just saw something, and we both got up at the same time. We actually didn't say anything. We just parked our bikes and just got up and started walking ahead of us. And what we were seeing was the condyles, or the big end bones of the femur, which turned out to be the first bones on the surface of Cooper. Now, to us, they just looked like big pieces of dinosaur bone. We had no idea what scale meant or anything at that stage. Like, we had no idea what a big dinosaur looked like or a little dinosaur looked like or anything like that. And I guess it was a bit naive, really, because when you think about what those elements were, which I guess then we didn't actually know either what they exactly were, that should have given us a clue. Anyway, of course, when we sent photos down to that, then triggered the first excavation, proper dig and all the rest of it that was to come. And we found the humerus, which is the upper arm bone. And we didn't know it was humerus, of course. We measured it all and removed it and took it back to our field at the house. And it turned out that it was one of the largest in the world. It was up there with one of the largest in the world. So that actually then kind of confirmed that this site really had a lot of potential, and that was what started, the next dig, and then we found all the bones belonging to Cooper. And it just went on from there. We found more sites when we were digging. We found the trackway. We found all sorts of things. So, yeah, it's amazing.
So you really are building a world-class museum out there at Eromanga. And what does it take in, a maybe not one of the most remote parts of the country, but a remote part of
Yeah.
Australia in a small town, nonetheless? What does it take to build a museum like that out there?
It takes naivety to start, honestly.
And willing to say, no, shouldn't all go back to Brisbane, right?
Yeah, and that as well. So that's exactly right. So I guess if someone had told us how difficult it was going to be to do this back in 2004, we would have probably not been quite prepared for that. It's like a lot of things. It's like when you have children, you're not prepared for them when you have them, but then you wouldn't have it any different, 10 years later, even 1 year later. So it's a bit the same. If it's probably not a bad comparison, actually. You grow with it and you learn with it and everything starts falling into place, There's a lot of successes and disappointments and all sorts of things along the road, and you wonder whether it's all worth it and all the rest of it. But when you're dealing with something as important and as significant and as rare, and that has so many economic benefits and so many educational benefits, and the list just goes on and on and on. You can't ignore it. So, and you can't turn back once you start. So it's, the momentum's there. You've got so many people behind you wanting this to happen. Yeah. So I guess, Travis, the thing is that it was naivety. We were just like, had our head in the clouds a little bit. We're pretty excited about the dinosaur discoveries and, then we just, okay, we'll build a museum. That should be
Yeah.
easy. The
Why
government will
not?
give us lots of money. It won't be a problem and it'll be so easy, but it was not like that. And it's still not like that. None of it's been easy.
Queensland Dinosaur Week, which is coming up at the start of May. Eromanga Natural History Museum is part of this. So what can people expect as part of Queensland Dino Week? And in general, if people come out to visit Eromanga, what can they expect?
Well, when they come out to visit the Eromanga region, I mean, obviously we're in the half of where the Eromanga Sea was, I guess, if you can imagine that, like 190 odd million years ago. You're not actually at Eromanga. You're not actually on the sediments of the Eromanga Sea because that it's still underneath it. But where the dinosaurs are west of there, where we are, you're on the silt that filled up the Eromanga Sea. So, and that's like across the rest of Queensland, up around Winton and Longridge and Richmond and all that. That's all sort of the silt that's filled it up. Well, Richmond's more on the seabed up there. So Eromanga is as I said to you earlier, it's the last place where the Eromanga Sea actually existed because it's the deepest part because it actually sagged, the whole area sagged in this area. It's a whole other geological story. And so, yeah, look, you're coming into a really significant geological area, and that's part of what we really want to interpret well in our next stage of the building. And so when people come to the museum, they'll see not only a beautiful building, it's been architecturally designed, won lots of awards. It's still in its development stage because we've only built stage 1 and 2. And stage 3 is going to start at the end of the year. So you will see you can do tours. You can do tours on the Australian Giants tours. So that gets you to see, you see an audio visual first, and then which also won awards. Then you go and see the bones over in the workshop at the moment. That will all change in stage 3. You'll see them in a more sophisticated gallery, but so in that process, you get to see the real bones of Cooper. You get to see the bones that we're working on that I mentioned earlier, the different dinosaurs that we're working on. You get to see the megafauna. And that's just in the 1 hour tour. But then there's also things like learning to prep. So you can do that in all different ways. You can do it for 10 days. You can do it for 1 day. You can do it for 1 hour. You can do it with your family. You can do it on your own. There's all different ways you can actually try and get to know what we do and have an experience out there.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, we have luxury accommodation on site. So you can make it a real experience. So for Dinosaur Week, there's a whole schedule of events. They've got twilight talks and there's a whole bunch of different things that they're doing. So over that period, so the team's been really busy pulling that together and they're very excited and it's going to be a fabulous week. And thanks to DEA for getting behind that and launching the very first, I guess, Australian Dinosaur Week, which is fantastic.
Really cool to see someone like Robin taking on that museum directorship position. And it's really exciting to hear what she's going to do next. And what is next for you on your road trip, Travis?
We are going to chat to someone with one of the most Australian names ever, and that is Macca. Officially Mackenzie Eichelheimer, but she introduced herself as Macca. And Macca is the collection manager at the Australian Age of Dinosaurs Museum in Winton. And this is where Diamantinosaurus is from, but also Australovenator, which is of course, features on our logo, our
Right.
wonderful mascot, Scratch.
Oh, and Macca is a fabulous person. If you've listened to Adele's podcast or you know Adele, Macca's another person from the Stephen Pora Pals group. So this is a group of researchers looking at early dinosaur evolution or looking at dinosaur evolution in Australia. And they're just a fabulous group to get to know. They're very wholesome and very supportive of one another. So it's good to see you getting one of the final Pora Pals in for an interview.
My name is Mackenzie Eichelheimer. I'm the collection and laboratory manager at the Australian Age of Dinosaurs Museum of Natural History in Winton, Queensland. The Australian Age of Dinosaurs is, I guess, what it sounds like, a dinosaur museum in the middle of outback Queensland. And so we're based exactly where we're actually excavating the fossil material. And my job is the long-term conservation of that fossil material, as well as running our digs and running our laboratory and managing our exhibition development facility as well, to make sure that all of that goes nice and smoothly and that all our fossils stay safe and that we can put them on display and have them studied and have them available to the public.
And what's it like being part of a museum out there in Winton? Are you a local?
I'm not a local, I'm a ring-in, but it's wonderful. I think that in addition to having such a wonderful small museum with such a strong team, you also have the beauty of outback Queensland. And being able to be part of a small town and a small town community is really, really special, in addition to the community that is the museum itself.
How did you come into the role there?
Yeah, so I have always loved collection management. I started doing collection management and learning about it when I was 15, volunteering at Queensland Museum under Kristen Spring there. I came out here on an internship in 2022 because I was trying not to be another student with a bachelor's degree that didn't have a job. So I was like, I'll get some more, experience at other institutions. And I was meant to be here for 10 days and then go away to Greece on some field trips. COVID stopped the Greece field trip. And then I decided that I actually didn't want to leave outback Queensland. So I stayed and took up reception roles and tour guiding roles. And eventually a spot came in the laboratory where I got to I was the laboratory coordinator, so I could oversee the fossil preparation under our curator at the time. And then over time, I just kind of worked my way up into doing what I love, and that is collection management. We have the most complete theropod dinosaur from Australia, which is Australovenator wintonensis.
Which is our logo.
Oh, is it? Hell yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
That's sick. So yeah, Banjo is actually just about to has undergone redescription. That's actually getting revised at the moment, that manuscript. We also have so much. We have in addition to Banjo, we have 4 other holotypes at the museum. So we have 2 more sauropod holotypes, which is Diamantinosaurus matildae, which is one of the best understood sauropods globally. Not only do we have most of the skeleton across not just the holotype, but also referred specimens. So from the skull all the way through to caudal vertebrae and the limbs. We also have gut content and fossilized skin, which is terrific. And then we have the holotype specimen for Savanosaurus aleatorum, which is another sauropod. And then we have Frederico lentini, which is a pterosaur, which at the time of publication was the most complete in Australia at a whopping 11%, which has now been overtaken by Heliskia petersoni, which is down to a couple of hours north from here in Richmond. And then we have Compractosuchus sauroptonus, which is a lovely little crocodile that has fossilized gut content of one of the only ornithopod remains found from the Winton Formation.
Yeah, so a nice spread. Some sites become known for just one type of creature, but you've got a bit of a spread out there at Winton and at AOD, so that's great.
Yeah, it's incredible, the amount of diversity in just the fossils that are being found out here. And it's not just dinosaurs and it's not just large vertebrates, but we're starting to find more and more microvertebrate remains as well, which is terrific. And as time's gone on, we're getting more people to publish on them and study them. There's so much more to be done at the Winton Formation and within just the fossils that we have in our collection.
What's happening out at the Australian Age of Dinosaurs Museum for Queensland Dino Week?
So we have a couple of events coming on. Most notably is that we had Dr. Dean Lomax coming out to visit us And he's actually going to do a presentation on impacts of paleotourism from a paleontologist perspective. And that's going to be happening on the 4th of May at about 2 o'clock. And then just some tours around the place and supporting, I guess, our other institutions who are also, partaking in Dino Week and just getting it out to the public and getting people passionate about paleontology. It's really easy to love dinosaurs and it's really easy to love paleontology. But I feel that sometimes it's just as easy to think that, everything kind of happens in the background and that there isn't going along. And when we have big events like this, it gives every institution the opportunity to kind of shine a spotlight on itself and be like, look at all the amazing things that we're doing here every day. And there is a future in this. If you have a kid that's really passionate about it, you should support them and get them involved. And, even if you're an adult and you're passionate about it, stay involved, stay interested, help where you can, be part of it. Yeah, I think it's wonderful.
Is there anything you can give us a preview about what's coming up at Australian Age of Dinosaurs in the next, 6 months, year?
Oh, so much. We have our standard experiences, I guess, where we have our Prepper Dino program, which is where, as long as you're over the age of 12 and you can color between the lines, we're happy to teach you how to prep a fossil. So we have that running year round, and it's honestly just wonderful to have so many people engaged as citizen scientists in the project. We also have our Digger Dino, which is really similar, where anyone over the age of 18 can pay and join us on our digs and actually be a part of that and help us excavate this wonderful fossil material. We've also started doing shorter workshops, so 6-day paleo workshops where it's not just prepping. We're also doing a lot more sieving and sorting and throwing a little bit of collection management in there, because I think the one thing that we're really passionate about is citizen science, and not just citizen science in the sense of people helping contribute to our projects, but also giving back. There are so many people out there that are super passionate about fossils and have their own collections. And, how can you better look after those fossils? Are you writing down the provenance of where you find them? Making sure that people understand the best way to preserve the significance of these specimens long term.
Something else I love about Australian Age of Dinosaurs is often with a museum, the thing is what's in the museum itself, right? What's inside the building. But I think there's a nice relationship out there with the landscape and other aspects of what's happening out there. You have a walk that goes down through, is it a little valley or a gully with some ancient cycads and things as well?
Yeah, so we have the Deep Gully Walk, which is sort of natural. And then, we have the Dinosaur Canyon Walk as well, which is where we've got, it's the Cretaceous garden section, which is, we're growing cycads. The plan there is essentially to try and recreate what the Cretaceous ecosystem would have looked like here 95 million years ago, which is actually doing pretty well for now, which is wonderful. But I think the environment out here is so beautiful, and it's probably one of the best assets the museum has. Is not the natural environment where the museum based, and is also making sure that the museum doesn't, I guess, outshine it, that it's a part of it. That's really, really important to the vision of the museum and the future of the museum, and sharing that with people. Winton itself has actually become a dark sky community, which is wonderful. So if anyone does come out to Winton, you just walk around at night, and even though you've got street lights, you can still see the sky full of stars. It's beautiful. And we're also going to start offering light and shadows kind of show in the evenings to sort of enhance on our Dinosaur Canyon walk, enhance on the darkness, and kind of make it a more not quite a 4D experience, but much more immersive, to kind of bring people back 95 million years ago and recreate that in the environments that we have.
If somebody is thinking about getting out there to Winton to visit the Australian Age of Dinosaurs, what can they expect? What should they do? What's the must? And what do they need to consider before they jump on a plane or drive?
Yeah, so probably the biggest thing is just getting to Winton. I think that's if you don't want to drive, which a lot of people don't, Winton has an airport. So there's flights in. And then we have a tour company in town called Red Dirt Tours, who you book on with them and they will actually drive you around, which makes everything super easy. There's also buses from Longreach into Winton, which just makes everything great. You come up to the museum, we've got our 3 tours. So we actually take you around our laboratory, which is where all of our preparation happens. And you can actually talk to our fossil technicians who are predominantly Prepper Dino participants and volunteers. And actually talk to them about what they're doing, and we can show you the preparation process. We have our collection room tour, which is where we store our holotypes. So we're a very unique museum in that we actually have our holotypes available for public viewing. They are in a lovely temperature, humidity, dust control room, and it's safe enough for the public to see them. We keep a nice close eye on them. And that's where you get to see Banjo, Australorvanator. That's where we have Matilda and Wade as well, and some really other important sauropod skull material. And our final tour is the March of Titanosaurs and Dinosaur Canyon. So March of Titanosaurs is a 53-meter long track site that we actually relocated up here to the museum in order to keep it safe, because it just would have been destroyed by the creek that exposed it. And that has sauropod, ornithopod, theropod, turtle, crocodile footprints, as well as some lungfish feeding traces, evidence of plants. It's unique for Australia. So we have a lovely little tour of that. And then the Dinosaur Canyon Walk, which is life-size bronze statues of dinosaurs all the way down to the dinosaurs that we find out here in this area, along with the Cretaceous gardens, those cycads, pines, ferns, things like that. And just absolutely breathtaking views of sort of, I guess, what is the natural heritage out here in the environment that is just, it's, you have these big jump ups, but it's flat outside of that, which is absolutely beautiful.
As you mentioned, Alyssa, Macca is one of the group of Stephen Porapat's mentees, I guess, along with Adele Pentland, friend of the podcast, who runs her own show, Pals in Paleo. So worth checking out. Stephen Porapat's also been on the show previously. So yeah, lots of familiar names on our road trip so far.
Well, it's not a huge world here in Australia, but let's hear from a new voice in the crowd.
This is a new voice. It was Travis on Travis for this interview. So Travis Enright, otherwise known as Trav Fossils. Now, Trav is a fossil influencer, a paleontology influencer here in Australia. He has so many followers, really exciting, and he is involved in digging up at Richmond for Kronosaurus Korner. So we're moving further north in Queensland there. And Trav's going to tell us all about what's happening at Richmond for Kronosaurus Korner as part of Queensland Dino Week.
I know there are a couple friends up at Kronosaurus Korner at the moment, and they're preparing for some really cool revamps of the artwork around the place. So if you remember our interview with Zev Landis, this might be an exciting location for you to keep in mind for your Dino Week journey.
My name's Travis Enright, and I go by the name Trav Fossils on Instagram and TikTok.
And Trav Fossils, that gives away what you do, really. You're a fossil influencer, one of the biggest in the country as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I think the biggest in the country now, which is pretty crazy. That's only happened in like the last year or so. But yeah, digging up fossils and putting it online, that's my jam.
Travis, we wanted to chat to you about Queensland Dino Week. You're hosting a bit of a workshop up there in Richmond. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I've been up there digging for fossils for 4 or 5 years now. And so Kronosaurus Korner have asked me to run a couple of digging workshops just because I've had enough experience there at the dig sites now. So I'll be taking out guests in the morning for a digging at dawn tour. So it's essentially where tourists join me to dig for fossils, where I found all the fossils in all my videos. You'll be digging at the same place. So we'll be scratching around and seeing what we can find, which is, it's a pretty amazing thing to do. Like, you're kind of in this old quarry and the sediments around you are basically all bivalve shells, and you've got belemnites and turtle fossils and fish fossils everywhere. And so people just come out with me and we'll be flipping over rocks and seeing what we can find. And that's, it sounds a bit gimmicky, but it's not. There's actually heaps of marine reptiles out there. And every year there's a couple more found just through these tours and doing them. So I'll be running a couple of those tours during Dinosaur Week.
Noticed recently you've been putting some stories of an elasmosaur up on your Instagram account. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so last year me and a mate were out digging and we found a few strange bones, and he ended up leaving the site and handed it over to me. And so I kept digging around, and for about a month didn't really find much else of this animal. We were only finding little fragments of bones, but it was a bit of a hint that there was something big nearby. And eventually, after I think it was 4 or 5 weeks of digging, I kind of hit the main skeleton of this animal, and it turned out to be an elasmosaur. So at the moment, we've got the jaw, the neck. I think the neck's complete. We've got one flipper, maybe 1.5 flippers, and the front of the torso, those sort of girdle bones. And it's going back under a hill. So now we've got a bulldozer and we've taken away the hill. And we're going to be starting up digging mid-May, and we'll try and get the rest of the skeleton out. We're kind of assuming the second half of the skeleton is back in there, but we're not entirely sure because it's been crunched up by Kronosaurus. There's bite marks all through these bones. So for all we know, the other half of the skeleton's been eaten. But we're hoping that it's still somewhat intact behind that hill.
When we go out there for Queensland Dino Week, for anyone who's not been on a dig before, what will they actually experience? What will they get to see?
You'll definitely find a fossil. That's a guarantee. So you'll kind of hop into like a pit, like a hole in the ground, and you'll be able to see all the layers like in a cross section beside you, and you'll be taught how to pick which layers are like the most fossil bearing and then kind of aim for them. So you'll be given, a pick, chisel, all that stuff. And yeah, I'll just be there with you to guide you. If you find anything, you yell out, what's this, what's that? And we kind of we peel back the layers and get down to the good fossil rich layers. And then just have a dig around, see what we find. It's pretty chill. It only goes for like a couple of hours in the coolest part of the day. But yeah, I don't know, that it's kind of the most exciting thing about these tours is that you don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
You never know what you're going to find any day out there. It could be like the most boring start to a day ever. Like no one will be finding anything. And then it's just like someone flips over one rock and it's like, oh my God, like that is insane. That is a pterosaur bone. Like you never know when it's going to, just your day will just like turn into something else. So I don't know. It's like, it's exciting that you never know what you're going to expect, but you're always going to be finding fossils. They are everywhere out there. So I'm starting up an event called the Great Aussie Fossil Hunt, and it's out there at the dig site. And if you find every fossil on a list, you get different awards. So there's like vouchers you can use to spend in town. There's like different medals and stuff for pieces worth donating.
Travis, tell me about your new initiative, the Great Aussie Fossil Hunt.
Yeah, so last year I had a mission to find every fossil series posted online. And so that was where I had a list of fossils, and I just decided to challenge myself where I had to tick off every fossil on that list. And so I've decided to bring that into real life now. So people that come to Richmond and Outback Queensland, they want to go into the fossil hunting sites at Richmond. If they apply for this list, they can then see if they can tick off every fossil from that list like I tried to. If they do, well, actually, so there's many different categories. So if you find like 5 fossils, you get like a free coffee or something. If you find a piece worth donating, there's a different prize and so forth. If you find every fossil on the list, up to 10 grand. So it's an incentive by the town to draw people out there. This list would be very hard to complete. You have about a month to do it. But if you do, there's 10 grand potentially on the line. And of course, like a host of different awards and prizes for a certain amount of fossils and types of fossils as well. Lots to be excited about.
Yeah, so lots of different stakeholders in Richmond are getting behind that, including Kronosaurus Korner and the local council as well as some other businesses. So yeah, sounds like a great initiative. And if you're keen, you can get out to Richmond and contribute to digging up and preserving Australia's past.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So it's going to benefit the town hugely if this takes off and people want to come there to try and tick off this list. That's just amazing for the town. If people stay an extra night, that's for the caravan park, for the other accommodation centres in town. That's huge income. So yeah, we're hoping it goes well. Maybe not this year or next year, but in a couple of years' time, it'll pick up. And the Great Aussie Fossil Hunt will be kind of like a staple of central Queensland that people come and visit just to do.
Sounds great. Well, I hope people get out there for the Great Aussie Fossil Hunt and everything else that Richmond and Central Queensland has to offer in paleontology. Just to flag a couple of the other things that are happening as part of Queensland Dino Week, and we can't cover all of them here on the episode, but Zev Landis, who you already mentioned, friend of the show, created our logo and our creatures, is also running a workshop, a paleo illustration workshop, and that's happening at Kronosaurus Korner as well in Richmond, so worth checking that one out. There is stuff happening at the Queensland Museum And of course, world famous paleontologist Dean Lomax is coming to Australia. Dean is particularly known for his work on ichthyosaurs, those marine reptiles, and I hear he's very keen to get his hand on some of Australia's own marine reptiles, particularly those ones up there in Richmond. But he is flying all over the state as part of Queensland Dino Week, so look out for Dean at Richmond, at Winton, at the Queensland Museum. He's going to be all over the place. And also Scott Hucknall, a legend of Australian paleontology, will also be presenting at various places around the state for Queensland Dino Week. Scott's affiliated with Central Queensland University of CQU. He will also be at Queensland Museum. He's presenting at Mount Morgan out in the west. He's presenting at Eromanga as well. So yeah, again, all over the state. And there's so many events out there. You know, people need to jump on the website, dinosaurexperiences.com, check out what's happening for Queensland Dino Week. And for the first one, I think it's a pretty impressive program. I look forward to seeing what they come up with next.
Given how expansive the dinosaur-bearing deposits in Queensland really are, I mean, they are so widespread and we get so much good stuff out of them. Like, I think a regional event, as opposed to one that they have to go all the way to a city for, makes a huge difference. And it also allows people who are local to those lands to know better what they're looking for. Like, there's a preparatory little course you can do where you learn how people prep this stuff out and what it looks like. I think all of that's really good knowledge for you to have if you're in Queensland and this stuff is in your backyard, or you've ever just wondered, what does Queensland Museum get up to? Wonder no more and find out with Scott and Dean and a variety of other lovely people on your Queensland Dino Week road trip.
I just want to say as well, we often hear from podcasters and people located in other parts of the world that Australia doesn't have much going on in dinosaurs. And I think one of our missions for here for Fossils and Fiction is to challenge that. I think the folks across all of these regional museums in Queensland, and particularly through dinosaurexperiences.com, which is their kind of collaborative effort, they're doing a really great job. And I just want to shout out to Karen at Dinosaur Experiences for setting up these interviews, for bringing all these people together and bringing the whole campaign together. And tell people, you know, you might think about going to Lyme Regis in summer for their fossil festival, which is great, but Queensland is actually the next great destination for these kinds of experiences. So yeah, come on down to Australia if you've not been.
Absolutely. And if you're in Australia, New Zealand, close by countries, and you're a little bummed about having missed some of the big UK events, as Travis is saying, come support something that is more local to our backyard. Have a chat with some people that are regional and find out how we do the paleo down here because, you know, it is quite different. Working in the hot, hot deserts of Winton is its own thing. And I'm sure you would love to learn about it if you're curious about this stuff at all.
If you can't get here this May, of course, this is going to be the first one, and all of these museums are open year-round, so definitely worth coming to check out. And again, thanks for everyone who chatted to us on Fossils and Fiction. I hope you'll stick with us as an audience, come along for these road trips more in the future. We've got plenty more planned for the rest of this year and beyond, so yeah, stick with us. Thanks for listening, and if you want to support the pod, jump onto our merch store and pick up some Scratch and Skitters merchandise.
Our merch is pretty sick, and it was designed by a real artist, a local artist, and it's got a trilobite on it. That's all the reasons you could possibly want to own it. And the dinosaur, yeah.
Yeah, the dinosaur, of course.
Of course.
See you next time.
Bye. Fossils
Fossils
and fiction.
Fiction.